announcement.
Good job.
My name is David Fu. My pronouns are he, him. And before we begin worship this morning, I have a brief announcement. Save the date. On behalf of the Channing Auction Planning Committee, which consists of Kathy Fu, Eric Smith, and myself, I hereby remind you that the 2024 Channing Memorial Church Auction Extravaganza will take place on the weekend of November 8th through 10th, 2024. Note to self, incite gleeful clapping. There will be a silent auction and fixed price sign-ups online, and there will be an in-person dinner with a live auction downstairs in the fellowship hall. As it was last year, so shall it be this year. There will be fabulous food, bellicose bidding, and excellent entertainment. Excitement! Incite gleeful clapping.
Oh.
And speaking of entertainment, this year we will again have a talent show to break up the auction action, featuring performances from some of our own. If you would like to join the fun and wow us all with a story, a brief story, a poem, a song, a bit of music, an appropriate joke, you get the picture, don't be shy. It will be an easy crowd in a casual, low-stakes atmosphere. To reserve your slot, let us know real soon now at channingauction@yahoo.com. November will be here before you know it, so start thinking about items, services, and events to donate. And be on the lookout for more information in your email, in the news share, in the newsletter, and at church. And if you have any questions today after service, just ask the person who is wearing this sign. And that will be I. We will now begin our regularly scheduled worship service. These are the words of John Saxon. Listen, the Spirit is calling. Against a black backdrop, a person's hands reach gracefully toward the sky. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of day and the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no names and has many names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of justice. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It is calling to you and to me. It is calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It is calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves, in others, and in the world. It is calling us to live more deeply. It is calling us to beauty. It is calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It is calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It is calling us to live courageously and kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice. It is calling us into community. It is calling us into the greater life of all. Listen. Can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. Come, let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body or spirit to join our voices in our opening hymn, number 348, from the gray hymnal, Guide My Feet. Please remain standing as Maureen Hayes lights our chalice with these words by Eric Walker Wickstrom, titled, Why We're Here. Here, today, in this place, with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know, and may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. It is now time for our story for all ages. One day, a villager visits a friend who is a citizen of the city. As they walk down the busy, bustling road, the villager is distressed by the sounds of the loud cars passing by. But the citizen doesn't seem to notice. Suddenly, the villager stops, pats the citizen's shoulder, and whispers, "Stop a moment. Do you hear what I hear?" The citizen turns towards the villager and says, "I hear the sound of car horns and traffic. What do you hear?" The villager replies, "There is a cricket nearby, and I hear it singing." The citizen, listening intently, shakes their head and says, "You must be joking. There are no crickets here. And even if there were, how could anyone hear it over all this road noise? It must be that you only think that you hear a cricket." The villager runs forward a few steps, stops, and stands by an ivy-covered wall of a house. The villager pulls back a few leaves, and there is a cricket. And it is singing so loudly. The citizen certainly hears it now. They return to their walk, and the citizen says to the villager, "You village folk are naturally able to hear better than us city folk." The villager smiles and shakes their head. "I do not agree. I say that village folk cannot hear any better than city folk, and I will prove it to you," taking a coin out from their pocket and tossing it onto the sidewalk. At the noise of the coin falling on the sidewalk, many of the busy passers-by stop and look around. The villager picks up the coin, and as the pair continue on their way, the villager says, "See, my friend, the sound of the coin was not louder than the singing of the cricket, but many citizens turned to look. I, on the other hand, was the only one who heard the sound of the cricket. We hear better the things that we pay most attention to." Thank you for listening. You did listen, yes? Please remain seated for our prayer hymn, which is number 112 in the gray hymnal. Do You Hear? silence that follows the spoken prayer, you are invited to come forward and light a candle for any joys or concerns that you hold in your heart this morning. This prayer is titled, Who We Listen To is Who We Become, and it is by Reverend Scott Taylor. Let us turn inward in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Sometimes the world outside us can be so loud, making it hard to hear the voices we once knew so well. Voices that once knew us so well. And so to silence we turn, to listen for the echoes of memories that make us whole. The pain of others that reawakens our hearts, and the beauty of this wildly generous world that wants us back. Friends, in the quiet of this space, let us not just listen for clarity and guidance, but to become larger. Those voices, whispering from deep within, are not just calling us home, they are home. We don't have conversations, we are our conversations. We must remember, who we listen to is who we become. What we listen for determines our path. Yes, sometimes the world outside us can be so loud. And so may the stillness we find here companion us and care for us, ensuring that we never get lost. So be it. Amen. I will light a candle for all the joys and concerns of those beloveds joining us virtually, and I will light a candle for all else that we hold in our hearts and minds this morning. If your heart is hurting, know that your community is here to help, as is Reverend Jane. Please reach out with any needs. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your sibling has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your sibling, and then come back and offer your gift. In the back of the gray hymnal, there are hundreds of readings that can be used as the various liturgical elements in a worship service, including a convenient section called Offertory Words. I have just shared with you a gender-neutral version of number 676, based on words from the book of Matthew. I can't remember it ever being used in our church. It seems unrelated to the more common appeals to generosity, to community building, to gratefulness. In fact, taking at face value, it seems almost antithetical to the usual ask. I will accept no gifts until you make up with your siblings. How are we supposed to run a church on that? So, my siblings, I'm going to be blunt about that part. The offering is an invitation to share our time, our talent, and our treasure to build and maintain our beloved community. Don't let reading 676 hold you back. But I say that reading 676 is very much about building beloved community. And there is a subtle tie-in to the sermon. And it is short. So let us hear it again before I pass the baskets. So, when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your sibling has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your sibling, and then come and offer your gift. For those of you watching the service online, you may contribute to our virtual offering plate using the donate button on our website, or by mailing a check to the church office. The address will be posted in the chat. I now invite the ushers forward to receive the offering. for all that you give and all that you do for our church and its wider concerns. We give thanks. Our first reading this morning is from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. The eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen, man's hand is not able to taste, nor his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was. And our second reading from the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verses 17 through 21. Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he saith unto them, Whose is this image and superscription? They say unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, to join our voices in hymn 298 from the great hymnal, Wake Now My Senses. And you take a minute to get ready. She that hath ears to hear, let her hear. Welcome to October. This month's Soul Matters worship theme is Deep Listening, and my job today is to introduce it to you. For starters, we will be using this stethoscope as a visual representation of our theme. Look for it at services throughout the month. And now, the promised introduction. Congregation, be deep listening. Deep listening, meet the congregation. Well, as I said, this is my job for the day, so thanks for coming. I'll see you next week. Okay, that was silly. Thank you for humoring me. Let us proceed with a real and proper introduction, perhaps. A natural way to introduce our theme of deep listening would be to delve into the question, what is deep listening? I could define and draw distinctions between the terms hearing, listening, and deeply listening. I could talk about the many ways to engage in the spiritual practice of deep listening. Listening to nature, listening to one another, listening to God, etc., etc., etc. I could. It's fertile ground after all. But I'm not. I will touch on such themes this morning, but for the most part, I'm going to leave that for Reverend Jane and the rest of the month. Today, I want to go a bit meta on you. I'm going to ask us to think hard about what we choose to listen to. And not just with our ears. To emphasize this point, I couldn't resist using one of my favorite bits from Shakespeare's comedy, A Midsummer Night's Dream. These few lines of Nick Bottom's short monologue, as ludicrous as they are, remind me that we ingest the world through all of our senses. And in our daily lives, we are subjected to so much input. Sights, sounds, tastes, smells, voices, opinions, etc., etc., etc. And up against this deluge of information, we have these words of the Reverend Scott Taylor from our prayer this morning. Who we listen to is who we become. What we listen for determines our path. What an excellent starting point for my next bit. But before my next bit, I feel it is my duty to tell you all the places I'm going this morning, to give you a roadmap of what is to come. So, first, I will consider deep listening during the Jewish high holidays. Next, I will complain about this morning's story for all ages. And to finish up, I'll make my peace with the story and move on. Jesus will help. Who we listen to is who we become. I say that's good stuff. It hits, as the young people say. Let us give it a test drive right now in the context of the Jewish High Holy Days, which started last Thursday at sundown with the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and will end on Saturday at sundown with the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. The High Holy Days are 10 days set aside from the usual busyness of the year for self-examination, for repenting for one's sins, and for seeking out closeness with God. One tradition during the high holidays is to seek out and ask forgiveness of those you have wronged. And I say that this is an exercise in deep listening to God. God. There's that word, God. Time for a little sidebar. The word God is no doubt controversial and for some even triggering, especially in a Unitarian Universalist church. As stated in our vision, at Channing Memorial Church, we embrace our Jewish and Christian roots, and as such, we are known to use the G word, and we use it in many ways. One way in which I am particularly fond to do is to use it as an invocation of something more specific. I learned this liturgical device from our minister emeritus, Reverend Susan Lamar, but I suspect it has a longer history. By using the language God as X, it deifies X in a worshipful way. There will be some concrete examples coming up soon. Let us get back to forgiveness. Asking for and granting forgiveness requires deep listening. To approach someone you have wronged and ask for forgiveness requires you to humbly and without any defense acknowledge the harm you have caused. You must deeply listen to God as your conscience, to God as your best self. And to properly forgive someone who has wronged you requires you to listen to them with an open, vulnerable heart, and it also requires you to let go of that hurt and stop listening to the cacophony of your fear. You must deeply listen to God as your love of life, to God as the spirit of your resilience. Forgiveness, when it is done with deep listening, the wronger and the wronged become God to one another. And the picture of an entire community going about their days, asking for and granting forgiveness to one another, is beautiful to me. A community of God. Who we listen to is who we become. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. When I was preparing this worship service, looking at the stories suggested by the Soul Matters packet, the cricket and the coin stood out to me because I found it annoying. Something about it really irked me. What was the problem? It is a good length. It fits the theme of deep listening. It packs a little punch. Indeed, we do tend to hear and enjoy hearing what we are used to hearing, be it crickets or coins. I couldn't put my finger on what it was that was bothering me, and I was sorely tempted to dismiss it and to look for another story. But I sat with it for a while. And then I went in search of another retelling of the story in hopes that it would possibly annoy me less, or at least help me figure out why it bothered me so. I found two other versions. One was outright offensive in its use of racist language with respect to Native Americans. The other was folksy and friendly and well told. But by the time I was halfway through it, I knew what at least part of my problem was: the city versus country narrative. The story paints city folk as busy, greedy, selfish, nature-ignoring snobs, and it paints country folk as wise, nature-loving, appreciative of life, and humble. It paints country folk as somehow closer to God. This is not a new narrative by any means, but I don't find it helpful, and I don't think it's fair. In my view, God, however invoked, is everywhere. So there's that. But the more interesting problem I have with the story, and it took even more time for me to figure this out, is with its portrayal of the coin as a symbol of evil. They who hath ears to hear, let them hear. Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he saith unto them, Whose is this image and superscription? They say unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. The coin in today's story for all ages reminded me of this favorite passage of mine from the book of Matthew. In the cricket and the coin is a symbol of greed with a capital G, one of the 7 deadly sins. What is the coin a symbol of in these words of Jesus? Greed? Well, I suppose it could, but I don't think it really captures the gist at all. It doesn't really make sense to render greed to the greedy. I view the coin, and more contextually, the act of paying taxes, as survival. To render unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's is to do what you have to do in order to survive. Moreover, to render unto God the things that are God's is to live, not just survive. Indeed, mere survival is not living in any meaningful sense of the word. Coming to church reminds me of this. And yet, it is a truism that in order to live, one must survive. I recently spent a lovely half an hour communing with nature under a ponderosa pine tree, but I ate my lunch afterwards. And there are other bits from the Bible that can be viewed in this way. For your homework, if you care to take such on, consider the story of Cain and Abel and their sacrifices. Spoiler alert, Cain is the coin and Abel is the cricket. And so, for me, the cricket and the coin is not about God as nature versus evil as greed, but rather it is about surviving while listening deeply to God so that we may live. Sometimes we must listen to the cricket. Sometimes we must listen to the coin. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. We who have ears to hear, let us hear. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit to join our voices in hymn number 391 from the Gray hymnal, Voice Still and Small. forth, listen deeply, walk joyfully, and love mightily. Go in peace. Amen.